Bosco Talks test run with me and Emily. It's more than an Emily, so we're going to talk about. We decided we're going to talk about how we got first introduced to youth work, not as a profession, but even as young people, and then we'll discuss further how we came into it as a profession. So when I was younger, obviously, I was introduced to youth work probably me early teens, 12, 13 probably. I would have seen me older brothers, older young lads being with them. They'd have been, well, as I see it now, they'd have been the ones who was like into doing the drugs, into smoking hash or whatever else they went on with that. So we were obviously younger. We weren't into that just as of yet. So youth work wasn't really, and I kind of seen it as just like a summer project kind of thing. Like, oh, you bring the lads out there, you bring them out there. I always wanted to join it, but it was never really targeted towards us until we were in our later teens, or me earlier teens, like 14, 15. Then we start being engaged within the service. Like, he was coming out, chatting to us, offering us to come in, but never really went in. But never really seen it as, it was more, didn't really see it as a job for him. It was more of a, like, he comes here after work or something kind of thing, like, you know what I mean? So my first experience was going in just to get out a call for a cup of tea, bit of toast, playing pool. And I think obviously he knew we were obviously what we were doing, what we were up to. And his obviously job was to target us and bring us in from where we were. He knew what we were doing. But we didn't see that as that. We just seen it as somewhere to go after school. So that was my first experience with youth work. And then obviously Jordan, the trips and all, used to do weekend stuff, like, so, but we never done residentials or anything like that, but we used to do like day trips. So he used to bring us, and it was never, as far as I can remember, there was never really any structure to it. There was never like, all right, you're engaged with us, we know you a couple of weeks. It was more, all right lads, the 7 of us here just want to go mountain biking. There was no real like, as far as I can remember, there was no real relationship building or anything. It was real just get these young lads out of here and off the street and do something with them. And from that, I think the relationship was built. And then I sort of started to view it like as obviously more of a club, but doing a lot more for us, you know what I mean? He was trying to, like, we were 15, 16, so I was starting that employment day, so I start to ask us about our education, about our employment and stuff like that, but still never thought about it, if that he's there to assist us. And I can remember actually one of my mates who finished school was always into youth work, so he used to volunteer with our youth work, and he used to send him on courses, get him trained up and all. He was probably one of the first people I knew that took youth work up as a role, like, and he was volunteering, so he was doing it for free, get looked after with vouchers and stuff like that. The odd thing, like, but it was never a paid role. And then after that we disengaged. Like, I would have disengaged my late teens, 16, 17, I would have disengaged from youth work altogether, like. And then I think my next experience with him, his role as a youth worker, would have been when I got expelled from school. I was expelled from school. I didn't know anything about appealing. You could appeal expulsions, you could get back in school, because I was in 5th year at the time. But I think my mate that was volunteering, when he mentioned go to JD, the youth worker's name was, and he was like, mention it to him, and he'll obviously, he knows, he has contacts in training courses, he's contacts in the boards of education, stuff like that. But going to him, and then because my parents wouldn't be like, they would have left school in 6th class, 4th year, so they wouldn't have great experience within the education system. They wouldn't know anything about expulsions or how to appeal expulsions. But when I went to him, he was explaining all this. You can appeal this. If you don't agree with the expulsion, you can appeal it. Then it goes to a second decision and stuff like that. He explained all this to me, ma. So then that's when I started to see the proper role of youth work, kind of, when I started to see it. He helped me how to appeal that expulsion, even though we didn't win the appeal. He helped me get into a newer school, so we knew that school wasn't allowed to expel me unless they found an alternative education for me, which was a school up the road, which really didn't do me any good, because I was going from like 5th year into a new class in 6th year, so it was real. Even though I knew one or two of the units sound, I had no plans of doing me leaving cert or that. Like, it was real. I got to 6th year, got to the leaving cert exam part, and left. Like, just didn't even sit me exams. Left school, and then again with that, I went back to him. He figured out, well, like, what you doing? He put me onto a few different things, few courses, and I actually done. It was youth, but it was a FOSS course at the time, and I was really into youth work. I'd done youth work for my junior cert and all, higher level for my junior, so I was really into youth work, and then I was how the Foss yoke used to work was like you do a 2-year, it's like a kind of an apprenticeship or a trainee yoke. So it was woodwork, metalwork in the kitchen, and then IT, which I'd done 2 years in the woodwork yoke, and I ended up actually sitting me leaving cert in Foss. So I done maths and English, which was one of the first in the whole Foss to do it. Ever do a leaving cert in there. Done that. After that, again, linked in with JD, and he's actually talked to me about CAOs and stuff like that, different training courses about college. Never even thought about college either. And I was always, via youth work, I was always into outdoor education, always into kayaking, rock climbing, and never really thought of that as a role either until I started looking into courses and stuff like that. And he actually helped me apply for the CAO and the courses. I wanted to be a mechanic. I thought I wanted to be an engineer, mechanic. He obviously introduced me to different courses that would help me, like a PLC kind of stepping stone, and science and maths PLC course. Probably one of the worst things I've ever done. I had maths, physics, biology, mad subjects. But it was like an introduction to, this is the like level 5 physics, this is what you're going to be doing next year. I was like, nah, I knew I didn't want to do that. But talking to other young people, or talking to other people in the college and all, I knew they had the course for the outdoor course, because I already applied for it, which was hard to get into. And I applied for one in Coolock, where I'd done the PLC course, and then I applied for one in St. Kevin's, where they were the only two in Dublin doing the outdoor education at the time. And the one in St. Kevin's I got after doing my engineering yoke, so I got a 2-year course in St. Kevin's. It's outdoor adventure management course, 2 years. It was a level 6. And I started that in this September. There was 32 of us starting that course. By January, there was 15 of us. That was the turnover, because at the end of the year, you have to go kayaking, you're going rock climbing, you're out in the rain, you're out in the cold. Yeah. So you have to, if you withstand them couple of months, they say that you'll last the rest of the course. By May, finishing the course, there was 3 of us that completely finished the course, which was mental. And on that course, a lot of the leaders and instructors on it were outdoor instructors, but they were also youth workers or linked in with youth services. And that's where I kind of thought of youth work as a role, as a job role, employment, because I understood from there. I've done placement and all during the summertime, and I knew the outdoors was weather dependent. It was always, obviously you're in Ireland, it was seasonal, so it's only during the summer that you kind of get the large amounts of work. And speaking to other people in that industry, it's like you have to go here, travel to this country, travel to that country, which was something I was all for. But I always thought that it's like it wasn't a steady job unless you had your own company.
Stable,
But talking to other, realising how important youth work was to me, and then listening to them if they're all in youth work and how to do it, it was something that I wanted to do. I ended up applying for the youth work course and 2 actually outdoor courses. So I applied for 3 courses at the same time. One in Tralee, one in GMIT Mayo. Them 2 are outdoor adventure management, so they were up a level. They were level E and level 7, level E. And then I applied for the Dundalk youth work course, which I was going to go for the 3 of them for the interviews. Had the Dundalk one first, going up on that interview, meeting Katrina, who was the course coordinator, and explaining how I got into youth work and what I was at the beginning doing. She was very, very, very good friends with my previous youth worker, who had only recently, a year or 2 before that, had passed away. So he was very ill, he was sick, he was terminally ill, he had leukemia, I think he passed away from. But just explaining how important he was to my life, it was more of a stories back and forward than an interview, and I felt that she was like the perfect, like you could see it, that this was the perfect match for me, like this suited me. And even after the interview, I knew that I wanted to do this course, and that was where I started from youth work, in my youth work role. And then before that, actually, I was like, as I was doing my youth work course, I was actually still working in the outdoor adventure industry during the summer. So I was working in Carlingford Adventure Centre, where obviously it's not too far from Dundalk, so I was travelling back and forward. I was working freelance on and off. So it allowed me different opportunities. So I was working there with huge groups of 30, you know. So I built my confidence up working within groups, leading groups, being an instructor. It built my confidence up. But then the youth work kind of allowed me to look at the theory behind youth work, the theory of psychology, the theory of sociology, all that stuff, which I was fascinated with while I was working in the outdoors, which work combined. And then throughout that time, I think I was just in my third year nearly finishing my fourth year actually, where I knew Stephen from bringing groups up. So Stephen, the PL of obviously their air course. Stephen, and I can't remember who he was with. I think it was Lorraine first, who I met. So that's where we started, and then it was Jess, who was the other worker. So I was on and off, and me and Stephen, like Stephen used to remember me from bringing groups up, and he used to ask for me. I was one of the only ones from Dublin. I knew which way to instruct them, you could say. But Stephen noticed that, and he used to always request for me to lead on their groups. And then we got to talking, and he realised I was doing youth work, and he offered me a job interview, and the rest was history. When I finished down, I started here in August 5 years ago, and I'm here now 5 years.
Sold your soul.
Sold me soul to youth work, and it feels like I'm still only here about 2 years. So that's my experience of how I got into youth work and as a role and employment. Yeah,
it's baffling though, because we would have a lot of young people say to us, like, what made you get into youth work? And you never actually sit down to think, oh, why did I get into youth work? It's only when you're kind of talking about your experience through youth work, and then, you know, like what you were been saying there, how, you know, the outdoor adventures, and then that kind of led you into youth work. Like, because when young people ask you, they put you on the spot, and you're like, I got into it.
When you were a young person in youth work, did you ever consider it as a job or a role?
I think, like, so obviously I came to the Bosco as a young person, and like, so I started off with the after skills, which obviously isn't youth work, but then I didn't really link in to youth work until I was about 12, 13. And the only reason I actually ended up linking in was because there was a music group, and they were called Generate Faith, and my brother was part of it, and he said to me one day, why don't you come around with me and see how you like it?
So it's more of an interest thing going on,
Like, I knew about the Bosco obviously from being the after skills, and a good few of my mates came to the drop-ins and were in groups and things like that, but I was playing football at the time as well, you know, so it was just kind of, once I heard about the music, said, I'll drop around. And then just from that, like, it led me going to drop-ins, then groups, and, you know, them day trips, as you were talking about, them famous day trips.
And did you ever view it as like, oh, that's a career? Because young people now seem to ask us, like, how'd you become this? I never, like, viewed it as, oh, this is like something you could do for life or something. I always thought, this is what he does after his job or something, you know? Maybe youth workers, like...
Well, I was kind of similar, like, so Lorraine would have been one of my, like, kind of proper youth workers. I would have also had Rhonda and Anto, but Lorraine was kind of my main youth worker along with Stephen. And I used to always say to her, sure, all you do is play FIFA and pool. Like, I'm baffled. I was baffled at the fact that, you know, you're getting paid to play pool with us. Yeah. But then, obviously, now that I'm older and I'm actually qualified youth worker, I'm like, whoa, there's so much more to it. Like,
I think it was, when I started engaging within youth work, I think it was a bit more of a cowboy scene back then. There was no,
now.
Yeah, there was more volunteers. There was more. You didn't need a college qualification, because I remember when I started, we had a different youth worker, and he had to actually stop being a youth worker to go back to college to get his diploma, and then he came back when he finished. It was actually Gareth.
Oh,
Gary, who was actually all that long.
I think that happened with a lot of people though. Like, once they brought in the kind of new regulations.
So that's where, like, when I only first engaged, when my older brother and all used to be engaged, that was Gary. And then he went back. He disappeared, and then it was JD then. So just seeing it then, and then realising you have to go to college and all, you have to do this. Do you know what I mean? I
think like when I think about when did I know I wanted to do youth work, or, you know, so obviously in the Bosco we have the process of junior leaders. So, you know, when you're a certain age, you kind of, wouldn't say get promoted, but it's, you know, you're junior leader to the younger ones. You take on a little bit of responsibility of whether it's running discos, helping out in groups. And that was a thing when I was a young person as well, and I'd been asked, do you want to be a junior leader? I was like, sure, I'll give me something to do once a month on a Friday, because they used to run monthly discos. But then I kind of went into helping out during Easter, summer, you know, the midterms. And I remember, like, thinking, I was like, I could probably, like, do something like this. No, I never thought youth work. But then Stephen and Lorraine offered out the Leadership for Life programme to, like, my peer group, and says, I'll do it. I was in first year of my first college diploma, at the time. But see, I was still only a fresh 17-year-old, so I was like, oh, what's this once a week? Like, you know, I can juggle the two college things. Because like back then it was like, oh, I'm getting a college accreditation from doing something in my youth centre. It was, and I think towards the end of that, like, because in module 3 it's the community action plan.
Yeah.
And mine was, I ran a music program with the after skills at the time, which funny enough, a lot of the young people that are doing the leadership program now were in that after skills. So it's kind of like a full circle moment for me.
It gave you that.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's why I was like, oh, maybe I could actually do this as a job. But then left me mind being a youth worker. I'd even said it to my mum at one stage. I was like, yeah, I think I'd like to be a youth worker, but didn't really talk much about it. And then I was out of my first college course, and I was working in a job that mentally took a toll on me. I ended up leaving the job. Didn't know where I was. Like, I was like stuck in limbo, you could say.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to someone, and I was saying, oh, like, I really just don't know what I'm doing anymore. You know, I thought this was going to be a good job.
What age was this? What age were you at this time?
20.
That's I would have been. We would have been through that similar phase
19,
around that
20.
age.
It was just before COVID, actually. And I said,
I think you were 20 just before COVID, actually.
Yeah. But I says, oh, I'm going to pop around to Stephen and Lorraine, because Lorraine still worked here at the time.
Yeah.
And actually, no, she didn't. No, that's a lie. It was Michelle was working here at the time.
It was the
first time I'd actually met Michelle. And I said to Stephen, I was like, oh, I'm thinking of going to do youth work. Could you point me in the direction of a PLC? And he was looking at me and he was like, you don't need to do a PLC. And I was like, well, yeah, to get into the youth work course. And he was like, no, you've got your first diploma under your belt. You don't need to. So he had told me about Dundalk. Said that he knew the head of the course, Katrina. And so I says, oh, right. So opened up the CAO with him, put it down, got called for my interview, which I was actually like really scared about, because I don't do well with stuff like that. Like I'll openly admit I'm very low confidence and low self-esteem at times. Like I don't hide that.
I would never cop that about you because of your performance, but
that's if I have a guitar in my hand, I'm grand. But you put me in a room to talk to people, my heart just. But I remember going for the interview, and it was Katrina and Eric.
Eric, yeah.
So
I know Eric.
Katrina, she says, "Oh, I actually know who you are."
Yeah, she kind of put you at ease.
Yeah, no, she was like, "I know you went to the Bosco for years," and I was like, "How do you know all this?" But turned out she'd been talking to Michelle beforehand. She was just talking about Stephen to me and Michelle, and was even talking about you, because you just started in the Bosco and things like that. And I was like, okay. And then it was like, right, just wait for your CAO offer. And I was like, grand. But yeah, and even working in the Bosco now, I never thought I'd be working in the Bosco. Like, I used to, obviously when you're studying youth work in Dundalk, they look for kind of, past experiences and things like that. And I remember saying like, oh no, I'm done with the Bosco. Like, I'm done with the Bosco. And I think that's because me and Stephen had such I'm not like a love-hate relationship. Yeah. Because he challenged me so much, and now that I'm older, I know he was challenging me for the better of me. But when I was a teenager, I was like, what's he doing picking on me again? And I used to always say, no, would never work in the Bosco. But here I am now, working in the Bosco.
It's crazy for me to think that you were probably a few years ahead of me maturity-wise, like, because like you started. When did you start? Yeah.
Which
college course, the youth work course?
What age? It was 20.
So I was like mid, so I would have even noticed the benefits of what youth work done for me till I was mid-20s, like, 23. I think I started my course when I was 24. I must have started the other one when I was 24. 26 or something. I would have been starting the youth work course. I was nearly 30, I think, finishing it. Not saying that, and I think that was the best time for me.
100%.
Because if I'd have done that when I was 18, there was no way I was passing that course.
No one should be doing that at 18.
Mentioning Katrina there, if she hadn't have been the head of that course, I wouldn't have passed that course. There was parts there, there was times on that I completely left. Yeah. I was actually, so credit to you and talk the difference between the both of us. When you started your course, you actually travelled up and down from Dublin.
For the 4 years, travelled up and
down. One of my bigger reasons for picking Dundalk, Galway and Tralee was to get out of Dublin. I was surrounded by, I was in an environment where it wasn't good for me. I was hanging around with people that weren't doing the best things. So my mindset was get out, move. Like, that was my mindset. I'm going to move out of Dublin. So I think that like benefited me a lot. But Katrina, being from Dublin, that. I used to love her classes, going into her class. She used to make us out, but she was
real.
so understanding. She was so understanding. Like I used to go, she was like, I couldn't even imagine going and talking to a different lecturer. Oh, I'm doing this and struggling with this, and this is happening. She'd cop on yourself. You're doing this. If I had to come down and drag you out of your house, you're finishing this. Even at third year, I was like, right, this is it. Do you know the way you get your level 7 and then you have an option to do the level 8? I was like, I am done. This is it. She was talking to me about the NSET. She was like, now if you have an interview and you're in an interview and then someone's ahead of you with NSET, automatically they get the job ahead of you. Like, it's just automatic. No explain, but being on the level with you, where it's like, it's just silly leaving now, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle for me, even though I was so interested in that youth work course. There was loads of subjects that I was like fascinated with, but then there was obviously other ones, the legislation ones, the law ones. I hated it. Didn't like them because it was just revision and then remembering stuff, which was brutal at. But Katrina was the one that got me through that course. I can say that.
So from what I'm getting through this whole podcast, because we're going to have to finish it up now in a minute, is that Katrina is a legend, and we both agree with that. Yeah, and then
obviously I have to give Stephen a shout out, actually, because I probably wouldn't have had experience working in 2 other youth centres. So Crossmaglen, I've done placement in Crossmaglen, which was my choice, which is obviously in the north of Ireland. Crossmaglen is known as Banda Country, which is kind of on borderland, borderland, which was an experience. It was like no man's land up there. There was no real structure. It was all over, but it was a great experience walking there. And then there was no real structure. There was no manager. There was no PL. So, and I was the lead kind of youth worker, and I was on
your placement.
On my placement, and then when I worked there, because I was like I was the most qualified, because the PL was at the leaving, so I was like the caretaker who was running the young. But it was like there was one of the workers was able to be me supervisor, which worked out. And then my other experience working in a youth centre was only across the way in the core youth service, which benefited me a lot as well, because I knew most of the same young people who used to come up with Stephen and stuff. So when they used to come up, they used to know me, so that probably benefited me. But then starting her, and then Stephen as a project leader helped me a lot.
Yeah, he's great, actually.
To see the role, what your role is as a youth worker, and obviously my role is different to your role. Like it depends on what you, obviously we have the same jobs, but what I feel my role is different to your role and what his role is. So you have your own, trying to figure out your role, which I still think I'm trying to figure out as I'm going on 5 years on.
I am as well. Like,
you're constantly growing, but seeing that saying that Stephen says, that's it, incompetently incompetent. Is a
I was thinking an incompetent there,
it's
but
dangerous to be incompetently incompetent, which means like not noticing where your flaws are and where you're going wrong, noticing where you struggle.
He's great for that.
Because he's 25 years in youth work, which he still does contact,
that's
which I find mental.
As old as me, like, if you put it that way.
Yeah, nearly your lifetime.
Yeah, he's nearly youth work my whole lifetime.
Yeah, which is crazy. So yeah, shout out to Stephen as well for showing me the role, even though the academic, which I struggle with, the academic side, I would not struggle, but I just, and even Katrina said that this bit, like, you can see now, it was when I was in first year, like, you'll be able to leave now and become a youth worker just because your social ability, you're able to go on the same level, like, you come to experience. I think that's a huge thing within youth work, because you know as well as I do in your course, randomers, 19-year-olds only leaving school and they're trying to become youth workers and they're coming out with the change the world hats on them and they're coming out here they get torn apart. So
well, it's been interesting learning your story.
Expand more. It'd be grand to get Stephen in on this as well and hear his
100%
life story.
Very good. Thank you.